Good morning and welcome once again to another edition of Pray on This. I'm your host, John Pray. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. So, both yesterday and today, while reading the newspapers, yes, that's what I do in the morning, I was just taken aback by a few things. The first one is the Earth Day protest in Quebec City. Now, everybody has the right to protest. I believe in everybody's right to protest. But, there's a few things that just caught my eye. One of the first ones was that this was a demonstration that got very much out of control with members of um, Antifa lighting a fire in the middle of a street while the Earth Day protest went on. But I also noticed that there was no real big push in by the cops. There was no big, getting out the batons and everything else. I guess this is one of those protests that our prime minister just agrees with. However, let's talk a bit about this protest. First of all, you have everybody talking about how Earth Day matters and everything else. And part of it was a big push for being vegan and everything else. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at some pictures and there's a young lady wearing a leather jacket. She's also got on leather boots that's holding up a sign with a chicken, a pig, and a cow on it that says, "You keep buying, they keep dying. Live and let live. Go vegan." I don't know if she actually understands the hypocrisy of her sign wearing a leather jacket, because that is most definitely leather, not pleather, and leather boots. So she's wearing the skins of animals, most likely a cow, but she's holding up that sign. Also, the protest, you know, where they lit a fire to to a bunch of pallets and everything else, and they did it on an asphalt road. Now, first of all, maybe they just don't understand that asphalt is also a petroleum product, but first of all, they're lighting up pallets, so they're burning wood, and they'll always argue that, oh, well, that wood's already cut down, so burning it is fine, even though they're releasing carbon into the atmosphere while doing it. And to get this fire going, of course, were they good little Boy Scouts where they got out the knife and did the little shavings and created the little Christmas trees that, we're all taught in Boy Scouts on how to light a fire with one match? No, no, absolutely not. They used lighter fluid for a barbecue, which again is a petroleum product. So they lit a fire in a downtown street while protesting, burning pallets, which are covered in dirt and grease and oil, which releases more petrochemicals into the air. The trees themselves, the wood from the trees themselves actually releases carbon into the air. And let's light that fire on an asphalt road. I don't know if these Antifa people know this, but if you start a fire on an asphalt road, you'll catch the road on fire. So not only is there the damage from the protests that they've created, not only the cost of policing it, but also there's the cost to fix the road. And then to go back to the girl who's wearing leather jacket, leather boots, holding up that sign about go vegan because, if we keep buying, they keep dying. I have a question for her. How cute does an animal have to be before its life matters? Now, I know there's going to be a lot of vegans and a lot of vegetarians and even some stunned people out there who are going to say, "John, what the hell are you talking about?" Well, for those of you who don't know, I am the grandson of a farmer, and I'm the nephew of a farmer. I'm the cousin of a farmer. I myself have plowed fields, disced and harrowed fields, planted fields. I know what you do when you do that. See, most of these people don't know what you do when you shove a plow into the ground and turn over the soil to a depth of 35 centimeters. or when you disc that furrowed land back into more crumbled and usable surface, and then you go over it with a planter, and then later in the year when you go through the rows and dig up the you dig up the weeds that are growing between the plants, you don't realize that we kill every worm, every mouse, every vole, every snake, every ground nesting bird. When you plow a field, the carnage is just amazing. For those of you who don't know, you will have flocks of ravens and blackbirds flying overhead. You'll even get the odd bigger scavenger bird, sometimes a vulture, flying over top of you while you're plowing a field. Why do you think that is? It's because we're turning over the soil and killing everything when we do it. So again, for all you vegans, how cute does an animal have to be for its life to matter? These are just little things. But again, when I think of the protest, I have to ask myself, why was there such a major reaction to a protest of truckers in downtown Ottawa who, if they were burning fires to stay warm, they kept them contained in a barrel, and they didn't burn right on the road where they damaged Wellington Street. They kept it clean, and contrary to what CBC and a lot in the mainstream media, as well as the government, were touting, the crime rate during the time of the trucker protest in Ottawa went down. Where when I was watching clips of this protest, I counted at least 25 criminal actions. I guess it's maybe that this is about the environment, and this is something that our Prime Minister cares about deeply, where, questioning his authority is something that he doesn't want you to do. Speaking of our Prime Minister, for those of you who don't know, he's got his own YouTube channel now where he's talking his truth and his facts, which we all know that probably isn't true. There's one thing I've grown to realize over 8 years of him being in power is that when he or any of his ministers like Krista Freeland say, "Let me be perfectly clear," it means that there's going to be a whole bunch of lies coming out of their mouth to deceive, dupe, and try and maintain power. Right now, he's touting his little debate that he had with a young man at the University of Winnipeg who was a People's Party of Canada supporter who had a discussion with him about abortion rights. And going on about how the Liberal government will always side with a woman's right to choose. And he makes everything sound so nice and so lovely. But, and not that I'm against a woman's right to choose. I'm not. However, it reeks of desperation. For those of you who have not paid attention over the years, Stéphane Dion did this in 2008, Michael Ignatieff in 2011, Paul Martin in 2006, although his was, there will be soldiers in the streets. But this is always what the Liberals do when they get into trouble politically, is they whip out a woman's right to choose. They whip out we're doing this for your children and the environment. They whip out that if we don't tax you to death with carbon tax, that the world's going to end. And then they whip out the abortion issue. No one's talking about abortion except the Liberals and Justin Trudeau. The fact of the matter is that that issue is pretty much so settled in Canada. The same as same-sex marriage, the same as human rights. And the only thing that I see Mr. Trudeau doing is pushing an extremely woke agenda that's based on ideology, not on fact. But he realizes that now his policies have caused a 40-year high in inflation, the first major public servant strike in this country since his dad was prime minister. Housing is completely out of reach for most people. Interest rates are climbing through the roof. The country's a mess. My lovely wife needs her passport renewed, but that isn't going to happen as long as the civil servants are on strike. Not saying it would have happened if they were at work, considering that most people are waiting 2 to 3 months to get one, if not longer. But this is just a tactic. The Liberal government cannot manage the economy. It's very obvious they can't manage the public sector. And it's extremely obvious that the only things they care about are things that sit with their woke ideology that most of us don't understand. But what we do know is it costs us more money and makes life more difficult. I think the time has come that those of us who live in reality, in the real world, who know that, geez, someone who claims to be vegan probably shouldn't be wearing leather, or that plants, what it takes to make them, is just as bad for the environment as farming animals. And for those of you who don't believe me, go to a vegetable farm, walk the field after it's been plowed, and take a look at the carnage. Then go back and walk it again after it's been disced and harrowed. Then walk it again after it's been planted. Trust me, there's an awful lot of carnage there. I think it's time we just all come back to reality. The reality where, boys cannot become girls, girls cannot become boys, where good fiscal management gives everybody a chance in the country to live their best life instead of being held down in poverty by the policies of a government. That where the law is applied equally, not applied with jackboot thuggery on protests that our prime minister and his party doesn't like, but get treated with velvet gloves for ones that he does agree with. Everybody is equal under the law. And it's time that we all get back to that. Our society will not survive if this continues on. All I can ask for is, please give us an election, because Justin Trudeau is out of time, out of touch, and the rest of us are all out of money. That, as always, is prey on this.